Our next really large project was Merdeka 118. Now this is a building that will be the second tallest building when it's finished. This is a complicated building. It's got 3 outrigger zones. That's where, major pieces of steel come into the concrete core and anchor and help support the building. It's got complex shapes. The curtain wall is crystalline, it moves, it has to meet the concrete accurately. The concrete has to work, in a sense, coherently with the core and the steel structures. These are incredibly complex technologies, and to have a very rich program like Archicad at our service to help design these, to help envisage how technical, complicated junctions come together, to tell us how materiality interfaces with structure, how curtain walls tie back to slabs. This is mind-boggling stuff, and I think that technologies such as Graphisoft's Archicad is it's a critical part of our future.
Hello everyone, welcome to Experience Archicad 24, our digital event. I'm Edmund Lau, Managing Director for Graphisoft Singapore and Malaysia. For the next hour or so, our team will give you an insight of what is available in our latest edition of the software and what's going forward. To bring a building project from an initial concept to realization requires a concerted effort from everyone in the construction value chain. There will be lots of collaboration and coordination among the project stakeholders, all with a common goal, and it's all about teamwork. At Graphisoft, our mission is to empower our user with the advanced technology and the company know-how to achieve this goal. For many years now, we have looked beyond just focusing on software functionality and features and taken a holistic approach in the improvement of our entire solution ecosystem. This year, we have made improvement in the areas of design, analyze, collaborate, document, and visualize, creating a tighter integration between our BIM software, facilitating advanced team collaboration and coordination for our user. Our Asia team will showcase the improvement we have made later part in this event. Joining me today on the digital stage, first we have our VP for Asia, Mr. Vensey Kovac. He will be giving us an update on Graphisoft Asia initiative, performance, and the latest development. Following up next, we'll have our local Graphisoft Asia team to give us a presentation of the latest features of Archicad 24 and the ecosystem. Next, we are extremely delighted to have Ian Lander and Catherine Lok, founder of Lander Lok Architects, to share about their BIM journey in using Archicad that started more than 10 years ago. They'll be sharing with us how they recaptured the architect's role as the master builder using BIM. After all the presentation, we have a live Q&A session. But in the meanwhile, you can start to post your questions at the chat panel and we'll respond accordingly. Please keep your question coming. Stay with us till the end of the event as an iPad Pro awaits to be given away through our lucky draw. For now, please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. But before I pass the screen to Bensei, I would like to show you a short videos of our team, what they have been doing for the past few months. And it's all about change, so we can stay connected with our Archicad community. Enjoy.
Hello, my name is Bence Kovac. I'm the Vice President of Graphisoft Asia. In the next 10 minutes or so, I will talk to you about our current situation and the trends we believe are important for us in the industry. But first, let me comment about COVID-19, which is obviously a very important factor in this year for everybody. Not a good one, I must say, but here I think we did a pretty good job on acting quickly, keeping safe our colleagues, taking care of our customers and our partners. All meetings are online now, and we try our best to help our users at their work from home efforts. We issued emergency licenses, free BIMcloud SAS, and I think also the important that we help them with know-how how to work from home with Archicad and with our other Nemetschek software. Learning is a great opportunity during the lockdown, and we provide good tools for that. Archicad Now weekly webinar is quite popular, and now all the trainings of ours are available online, and there are more and more training videos, and the newly open GS Learn site will also provide a great basis for further learning. Let me talk a few words about the results, how we are growing. As you may know well, we belong to the German Nemetschek group, which is the second biggest software group in the construction industry now. As you can see from the data, this is actually public data, we are growing year on year quite significantly, typically above 20%. And now 15 brands belong to the family, among them famous companies like, besides Graphisoft, Solibri, for instance, Risa from US, D-Rufus, Bluebeam, and so on. As regarding Graphisoft Asia, I think the situation is similar. We have continuous growth in the last 7 years. I'm very proud of this as a VP of Asia. And right now we have about 20,000 or more users all around Asia, which is quite significant. But I'm quite sure we will not stop there. Regarding Singapore and Malaysia, this is pretty much the same path almost every year. And the most important, the last 5 years, we showed very strong growth with your help. And we would really like to thank you, your trust and help in this respect. we continue to serve you, and our help or our growth will be at your help. Maybe one more data about the growth and the market share is that in Japan, which is the biggest market for us in Asia now, we have been voted the most widely used BIM application in an independent survey by one of the Japanese architectural associations. So that means that among the architectural offices, Archicad is used most widely as a BIM software. Very proud of that, and I would like to repeat it in many other countries. Very importantly, we are investing. Despite of the difficult year, we have 7 new colleagues in Asia and 46 worldwide. That's quite a significant number, barely less than in a usual business as usual year. So that shows that our trust in the future is unchanged. But not, of course, not only people investment, although this is the most important, I believe, but we're starting new projects, but maybe this is something my colleagues will talk about. Also, there's a lot of change going on with the arrival of our new CEO last year. Mr. Hugh Roberts brought tremendous of energy and know-how, especially in marketing. As one visible sign, which is very easy to see for everybody, is the new logo, the new CI, the new branding. I think it's pretty cool. So I hope you agree with that, and we will use it from now on all over. So this kind of symbolizes the spirit, the can-do attitude that we have now, and we would like to progress in a very fast pace. In the next few slides, I would like to talk about 3 trends, which I believe is very important in the industry, and what also determines our efforts in the future. First, we believe there is an enormous effort going on regarding the workflow. The basis is that our tools have changed tremendously in the last 20 years, but still quite more often than not, we sort of imitate with these new tools the 2DB's workflow. And I don't just mean actually how we use the tools, this is also the part of it, but more how we organize the work. As you know, in the last 20 years, I worked in the industry, borderline of the software industry and the construction industry. So please allow me to borrow some analogies and methodology from the software side. So also in the software industry, the typical working method, what we call a little bit ironically, this bureaucratic team method, which is a kind of top-down setup where the individual responsibilities are quite set up. There is quite little interaction between teams and sometimes between individuals. Recently in the software industry, there's a growing trend of what they call the agile team. And that means that rather than the top-down system, there's an autonomous group, which cross-functional, meaning that all the functions are in the group, and there's a lot of interaction between the groups. So this is also quite similar, and the situation, what call this answer is similar in the software, in the construction industry. I'm sure that you must be too familiar with the pain of coordinating between different functional groups, architects, structural engineers, MEP engineers, and so on. And of course, the irony is that they work on the same building, sometimes very much the same data, but still they are working in silos and very little interaction between each other. So our effort is, in a way, to bring all these professionals working on a project to bring into one, let's call it, agile design team. So I think last year, if you heard me speaking or my colleagues, we talked a lot about what we call the Everest projects. Now this Everest project brought fruit, and this is basically what we present today, Archicad 24, and it is available. And this is what we call the interactive design method. And this exactly allows this kind of agile method that rather than detached design teams working separately and sometimes coordinating to each other, you can do synchronous design. Rather than detecting clashes and fixing them later, you can avoid clashes from the beginning on. And rather than coordinate separately developed designs, you can design together. So this is the essence of our effort with Archicad 24, and you will hear my colleagues talk much more detailed about this. But integrated design, I want to emphasize, does not mean that we want to give up our OpenBIM approach. I'm using here Nemetschek's slide because OpenBIM is really the DNA of our group, our Nemetschek group. This is why we allow the separate brands to keep their identity. We don't want to homogenize these groups into one huge company and just make a department out of it. We believe this fosters innovation and gives much more space these brands to develop exciting solutions. So our developments, and Archicad 24 is very much part of it, actually allow even better OpenBIM designs. So it's not a contradiction that integrated design will also allow better OpenBIM design. You will see that meanwhile allowing our users to create structural and MEP data, it will be much more open to outside data. And why is OpenBIM is important for you? Because this allows vendors, not just allows, but forces in a way vendors focusing on customers. It fosters innovation, and very importantly, it decreases vendor dependency. This later, in the view of the latest development industry, I believe is very, very important for you. So I just want to emphasize, we want to stick with OpenBIM forever. And the last topic I would like to talk about is what I call the rise of non-graphical data. Let's see this project. This is a huge project in Australia, coincidentally done by Archicad, and Solibri was involved, and then a couple of other, Rufus, very importantly, was part of the design process, but also other non-Nemetschek applications. So this is an enormous amount of data. Here, what is it I want to emphasize is, besides obviously the 3D, exciting 3D views, that it has an enormous amount of items, which fixtures and all sorts of devices, and all these about 100,000 and more serviceable items. So we may think aeroplane is a complicated equipment, but I think even an average office building has more component than a jumbo jet. So this project is probably 20 jumbo jets or even more in terms of complexity. And each of the equipment has long list of parameters needs to be located, stored, and managed throughout the whole life cycle. The very important point of this project was not to finish the BIM data and throw away the BIM data once the building is completed, but actually provide data for the maintenance of the building instantly and automatically. So for this, non-graphical data is a key. Let's have a bit of historical view of how the relation of graphical and non-graphical data developed throughout the years. Beginning of the 90s, when the notion of BIM was not yet existing, we just called it 3D CAD. The main goal of the whole process was visualization, 3D. So it didn't need justification because it was so wonderful we had 3D. Non-graphical data was barely not existing. It was just very, very minor issue. Later on, when BIM started to develop, non-graphical data became it was still an auxiliary to the 3D data. And the goal of the whole process, the most important goal, was the consistent 2D documentation. So for this, the justification of the 3D was coordination. But now, when the non-graphical data is becoming, I would say, essential part of the BIM model, in a way more important than 3D, so the justification of the 3D is referencing and sorting the non-graphical data. So this is the relationship which is changing dynamically, and this is something we have to take into consideration. Another aspect of it, that as the design and the construction are done by different people and different companies, the collection of non-graphical data is anything but smooth. The problem is the handover. During a handover, very easily this data corrupts or disappears or simply is not given away. So there's a tremendous amount of waste in energy and effort what takes place during the processes. So one thing we want to ensure, and this is one of our future directions, that we want to make sure that the collection and management of the non-graphical data during this handover processes are smooth and continuous. So this is something you can look forward, some exciting news. This is going to be our next focus, I believe, in the Graphisoft and also in the Nemetschek group. So thank you very much, and please look forward for my colleague's presentation about Archicad 24. Thank you.
Welcome to Experience Archicad 24 digital event. Today, we'll have the pleasure to take you through the most significant innovations in Archicad 24, BIMcloud and BIMx. First, we get to see Carlo Riveral presenting how the integrated model as an IDD solution is achieved with our Graphisoft ecosystem, showcasing the structural analytical model and the MEP integration. He will also introduce Paramo as the solution for node-based programming of native Archicad library parametric objects. After, James Badcock will guide us through the innovative collaboration and coordination by tracking changes, compare model versions, and through issue management. He will also show the SSA content with our dedicated solutions for our markets and clients. This is another SSA benefit besides the training, support, and the exclusive events. Lastly, James will go through the hidden gems of the updated library, integrated automation, BIMcloud and BIMx enhancements.
Hello everyone, my name is Cardo. I'm here to show you some new features of Archicad 24. In the past user days, we had shown you how to use Archicad in integrated modeling in IDD solution in three disciplines: Archi, Structure, and MEP. This one model approach has been successfully implemented in actual project used by our key clients Urbana Jurong and HDB. For this demo, we will be using S-Building project throughout the entire presentation. This is an integrated model composed of Archi, Structure, and MEP, but first, let me focus on Structure model. Now in Archicad 24, you will be able to see analytical model of the load-bearing element in one click. Let's take a look at the details by switching off the physical model. You can now see the analytical lines and shells, and even the analytical nodes. The node is shown in green if the element is connected. Let me move one element out and you will notice that the node color turns red. It means it is not connected. All the nodes here was generated automatically. You have an option to display other structural properties of the element. like end, edge, release, profiles, and local coordinate system, and display settings like set transparency of the elements. Here in Archicad 24, we have structural analytical model rules. By default, there are sets of rules available. For example, concrete, steel structure. You can create your own set of rules and use export, import, and make it as part of your template. Let's have a look at some of the rules available for connecting the element automatically. For example, using offset rule, this helps us connect the walls to walls or column to column and so on. We also have cutback and stretch rule to trim some connection. Below, we have some additional rule setting where you can adjust end edge release, ignore openings smaller than or equal, or you could remove parts of the 2D member. For interoperability, we do have a special translator to export this structural analysis file. We call it .saf or Structural Analysis Format. This was developed by Namajek Group. The translator allows you to modify all the settings necessary for export and import. For example, when you look at all the export settings, here we can see the profile mapping, and one of the most important settings here is the axis. Every analytical design tool has their own coordinate system. Depends on which software you're going to use. But before exporting the analytical model to SAF, we have a handy tool to check the structural analytical model quality. This gives us assurance that the model quality is good. Now we are ready to export. Again, we can just export the SAF, then pass the file to engineers, or alternatively, can use the new BIMcloud features to export to BIMcloud. Our new BIMcloud accepts any file format, so in this case, I'll be sharing SAF file format. Let's try to access the file in the BIMcloud. I'll be using my colleague's login and pretend that I am an engineer. My name is Engineer Chidambaram. Once you are in BIMcloud, go to the project, search for the folder you had created, and download the SAF file. Then, let's open up my engineering software. I'll be using eTabs for this exercise. We have SAF add-ons for eTabs that was fully developed here in Singapore. It is now under testing. It will be available soon in our SSA website. Let's start eTabs. I'll be using the default settings of eTabs. To access the add-on, go to Tool, select SAF, Import, Export, and run the plugin. The user interface of the plugin is very simple. You have an option to choose selected members, links, or just choose all elements. Then search for the SAF file that we had downloaded and just click Import. As you can see, it brings the model inside eTabs. Now the engineer can now start working seamlessly without remodeling the whole project from scratch. Here, we can visualize the actual thickness of the member. We can see all the information of the slab, but there is no loads. At the moment, we are not sharing the loads data, but the geometry is there. Let's run a simple analysis. As you can see, the analytical model displays the finite element model of the structure. You can see the mesh deformation. We are not expert in eTabs and not an engineer as well, so I cannot really explain engineering terms here, but I'm here to show you how we can use Archicad model in eTabs using SAF file format and the SAF eTabs add-ons connection. That's all. Thank you, and let's move on to the MEP part. MEP is now integrated with Archicad 24. That means it doesn't require additional licensing for MEP Modeler. You can now access MEP natively inside Archicad. Let's talk about the workflows. In early design, designer can now quickly model major MEP services that affect the design intent during the early design phase. So before involving the MEP engineers, architect can now model MEP objects like docks and pipes. This helps MEP engineers as well to understand architectural design intent of the project. You can use 2D DWG import workflow, use it as a trace reference, or use it for visualization for interior designer if the design requires open ceiling with exposed MEP services. We support IFC-based Open BIM workflow as well. Let's get started. Again, we are using the same model here. By simply enabling the MEP work environment, you notice Archicad interface change. We can now access all MEP tools like duct, pipeworks, and cabling. As you can see, MEP palette is now visible. These palettes give us access to all routing settings. We also have some additional toolbar on top, which is the MEP system. It helps make some modeling easier by using the selected connected MEP elements, resize MEP element, and manage MEP system. Again, I am using S building as an example of integrated model. Let me open up the 3D MEP perspective. As you can see, this is a complete 3D MEP services. Let's try to check the settings of the dock and modify the position using offset in the path palette. If you encounter MEP clashes in Archicad, we have a built-in clash detection tool which called collision detection. There are some improvements done on this tool in Archicad 24. The first group represents Archi wall and the second group is for MEP services. We use classification criteria to filter the selection. Let's run and check. Now you can see the improvement format report in Archicad 24. Let's select a few elements from the report and use the Show in 3D to highlight the element in 3D view. As you can see, the wall and the duct clashes to each other. Let's try to resolve this issue by creating opening using Create Opening from Selection. We can also select all the pipes and create all opening at once by simply using the shape of the opening to automatic function and set the offset accordingly. This will create all opening and resolve all the clashes. Thank you, and let me pass you to James.
Thanks, Carlo. So following on from what Carlo just showed, I'm going to go through three other features of Archicad 24. These include the track changes, the model compare, and issue management. So let's jump into Archicad. Okay, so here I am in Archicad and using the same building that Carlo showed earlier. And I'm working with my colleague Zaid, and we're going to be working on some design changes for this building. So let's jump into the floor plan. And here is a meeting room that we no longer need. So we're going to design this a little bit differently to include more office space. So we're going to remove this meeting room. And before the design starts changing, I want to start tracking to be notified if things change on the server that I should be made aware of. So this is a new feature. So if we go to Teamwork, Change Tracking. Okay, so in the Change Tracking palette, I've already subscribed to one item. So here, doors. And basically, I will be notified if anything on the server will change regarding doors and their geometry and positioning. So I've turned off the other items, which I'm not so interested at this stage. And I'm also just looking to see if Zeit will be making some changes. So I'm going to add another subscription. So I'm going to go add. And here I can look at the criteria, which is the one that we have already. Selected elements, which I will choose. And we also have a third one, which is project data. So if something like attributes or stories change, we can also be notified about those changes. So I'm going to choose selected elements. And I'm going to call this meeting room level 3 and OK. So now I need to select the elements that I want to start tracking. So I'm going to select the table and the chairs here. And to this subscription, I'm going to add. So if anything changes with these elements, I'm going to be notified. And I also want to have a look at this wall. So I think we'll have to remove this wall. So I just want to be notified if this changes. And I'll add this wall as well. Okay, so I'm just going to hit apply. Okay, so let's switch back to Zeit. So he's going to start making some changes into some design changes, and then we'll see how we get notified on the other side. So let's switch user. Okay, so here we are with Zeit, and he's going to start making some design changes. So first off, he's going to remove the meeting room table and chairs. So it's going to select those and delete. He wants to put a couple of doors in, so he's going to pick up this door and place over here. So just for some better flow, better movement. And this wall is no longer needed. So he's going to select that and delete, and just copy some of these office table and chairs. So it's going to copy those over here. Okay, so I think he's quite happy with the design, so he's going to send those changes to the server. So send changes. And then let's switch back to James. Okay, so here we are back on James, and I'm already notified about these changes that have occurred on the server. So let's click on the meeting room one, and let's dive in a little bit to this. I'm going to just close the track changes palette for now. So here I can see that I've been told that 18 items that I'm currently looking at have been deleted. So if I double click on one of them, I can see, okay, so I can see a table, the chair, objects, and also a wall. Let's have a look at the wall. Okay, so I see this wall was also removed. So let's just check the other change that I'm tracking. So with the doors, so I can see one new door, two new doors, and one deleted door. So I'm presuming it'll be this door. The other two doors I won't be able to see because I haven't received that yet. So now that I've been notified that these changes have come in, so when I do a receive, I'm actually going to do a receive and compare, because I actually want to compare the changes from the server with my current model that I have here. Okay, so the model compare window is processing, so this may just take a minute. So because it's comparing two models and then seeing what the differences are between those two models. Okay, and now I have a 3D model that shows the comparison. I'm just going to spin this around to see the colored areas and zoom in. Okay, so let's go through what we can do here. So here I have the old model, which is in red, and the received model, which is in blue. So we can compare between what is received from the server, or we could compare between two separate Archicad files, or we could compare between two views, for example, of the model. Here, the appearance. So I can modify the intensity of what hasn't changed. So this semi-transparent area, but I want to make that much lighter. Okay, and then if I slide towards the red, so this was the previous model, and then if we slide it all the way to the blue, this is then the new model that's on the server that's just being received. So if we put this in the middle, we can then see a comparison between the two. So I can see that he's removed these tables and chairs, he's removed this wall here, So basically extending. So I'm quite happy with the changes he's made here. And let's have a look at the changes. So here I can see modified, and I can see two walls that got modified. So if I double click, I can zoom into this one, so I can see there's a new opening, and also here. So I want to have a look at this in a little more detail and send this back to Zai for a little bit of confirmation, because I can see this will go into the washroom area, and maybe these two doors are a little bit closer. So I want him to review this. So I'm going to select these two walls from this palette, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add this to a new issue. So I'm going to call this doors on level 3, and OK. And these will be added to my issue manager. So this is new also in Archicad 24. This replaces the old markup. So here under modified, I have the two walls added. To help to clarify exactly where in the model, I'm just going to create a view. So a little snapshot. And under the comments, I'm going to also add a comment to this issue, so we can have a running log of the situation. So review 2 doors if they are compliant. So okay. So if I open up the issue manager, this pop-up, so we can see the organizer, we could have hundreds, potentially hundreds or thousands of issues that are in this project. Currently, we just have the one. So it's currently open, low priority. So I'm going to change this to medium. And the teamwork owner is because I created it. I'm going to send this to Zai because I want his review on it. So I'm going to choose him. And with this issue management, we can also import and export these to, say, BCF 2.1. So here I'm just creating a new assignment. So I'm going to send this to Zai, and I will also send my changes. Okay, so let's switch back to Zai. So he's received a message from me. And let's show this. So he has to receive also from the server. Okay, so within the issue organizer, he sees that this issue, so if he double clicks, then he gets the same information that I just inputted. And he can see that it needs to just review these two doors. So on the floor plan, he can see that these are highlighted here. And he's just has a quick look at this comment. So if they're compliant, so he has checked this and he says that it's fine. So he's going to actually change this status. Instead of being open, he's going to turn this to resolved. But he can keep it in this list, but what we'll do is just turn this off. So we'll just hide it. So we still want a running history within our project, but for now we just turn it off because it's old, because now it's been resolved. So with these 3 new features, we can get a really good workflow between different consultants or different members working in the teamwork project, and basically to improve the quality of the project. Thanks. Back to you, Carlo.
Thank you, James. Now let's talk about Paramo. It is a new feature of Archicad 24 for creating objects on the fly. I'll show you how Paramo works and what are the basics that you need to know. During this demo, I will show some useful nodes that you can apply in your parametric object. What is Paramo? Paramo is a node-based technology for object creation inside Archicad, similar to Grasshopper and Dynamo. It creates parametric Archicad library objects without writing a single line of GDL code. Paramo is properly documented. You can download the reference guide and the node guide in our Help Center website. Here are some of the features of Paramo. It is a fully node-based parametric content creation. It has a live preview of the final object during creation. And it saves the result as a parametric object. And of course, you can define pen, surfaces, basic shape, mathematical operation, and many more. Here are some technical details of Paramo. Paramo stores the object in the embedded library as a .gsm file, or we call it native Archicad object. Paramo script is stored in a new library part section. Create object are usable without installed Paramo. That means you can use object even if you don't have add-ons installed. Again, this is a technology preview available for Windows only. Let's start Paramo. Open your Archicad 24, go to File, Library and Object, and select New Paramo Object. It opens up a new window editor. The editor composed of 3 parts. On your left side, you can see all the nodes available. At the center, you can see the canvas editor. Here is the place where you can put your node and compose your design. On your right side is your live preview. Let's create a simple object and use the global dimension parameters. As you can see, just by connecting the node, we can easily create parametric object. We can apply surfaces and add parameters by editing the node. Let's take a look and place the object inside Archicad. Let's go to the object settings. As you can see, the global dimension and the custom parameters we had created is now available. Let's open up the Paramo Manager. Here is a place where we can manage all the Paramo objects. We can import, export, create new object, duplicates, and edit. Let's take a look on some of the sample objects created in Paramo. By using the basic shapes, applying some basic parameters, we can easily create an object like simple stair or a simple table. By using the global dimension parameter, Archicad will automatically create a node in your object bounding box that gives you access to the basic pet palettes like stretch height and stretch width. Let's move on to the advanced Paramo modeling. This is not your ordinary sun shading screen object. This is a smart object that follows the sun altitude. By using the global values inside Archicad, we can now automate the sun shading screen by using the sun altitude values and use it as the rotation angle values of the panel. As you can see in the animation, the panel rotates based on the sun altitude. We can distribute placement of object by using the GDL object node. Here, we can call the object and call its parameters. Another nice example here, they created perforated panel using random number nodes and use it as a window by changing the subcategory to opening. For hardcore GDL users, if you miss GDL scripting, we have a special node for you. We call it GDL Shapes. This allows you to write your own script inside the node to create your own custom shapes. And lastly, Paramo gives you access to your favorite complex profile. That's all I had to say. Thank you, and back to you, James.
Thanks, Carlo. In addition to those main features of Archicad 24, there's quite a few hidden gems. So smaller features that don't get the spotlight like the larger features. So let's just go through a few of those. So the first one is the new library parts for interiors. So there's a lot of new furniture included within the new version. So this includes things like ottomans, chairs, sofas, side tables, ornaments, things like this. So here you can see a selection of these new parts. So even things like the pillows and the blanket on the bed and the bed are all new. For the Mac users, there is now dark mode to change your whole interface to match your operating system. So this can be easier on your eyes. For those interested in doing a little bit of coding, we now have Python JSON scripts directly in Archicad. Previous versions, this was included, but as a technical preview, so now it's baked into Archicad 24. This can help with automating many things, and it can speed up productivity as a result. BIMcloud has had a number of updates. So on the BIMcloud, we can now store and upload any file type and access that directly in Archicad. The track changes that I showed before now as a live tracking via BIMcloud. The model compare that I also showed, we can also use this during receiving directly from the BIMcloud. And we now have BIMcloud project and teams, which help to collate all the common information of a single project in one place. For BIMx has also had a number of improvements. BIMx is also available now, so you can download the update. For example, hypermodels with unlimited 3D model size. So we now have a new data streaming technology. So regardless of the capacity of the RAM on your mobile device, will always stream and can open any file size. So therefore that will create faster startups, so on open. We've also improved the realism of the 3D environment. So the shadows, say for example global illuminations, is now baked in, so you don't have to wait for this during export. And the smart measure feature is now available for free. There's a few additional features. I've only listed a few here. For example, MicroStation DGN V8 support. New re-indexing in the attribute manager, so you can move the index of one attribute to a different position, so a different number. So this would be really good for BIM managers. Option sets now support directly within Excel, so you can set the option sets in Excel and bring it back to Archicad. And import RFA families as GD objects is now supported directly into Archicad 24 without having to go to a different website to download. So this is only a selection of some of the features, but it's worthwhile going to a website or asking us for more information. In addition to all of the Archicad 24 features, we also have a number of improvements to our SSA content. So this includes free training, so basic and advanced training, as well as rendering and other trainings. You'll find these on the website. We've also introduced a number of localized add-ons, and we also have improved our custom library just for SSA users. So to access this content, you just need to go to graphisoft.com/sg/SSA. You need to put in your Graphisoft ID credentials and make sure that your Graphisoft ID is linked to your company SSA registration. If you're not quite sure, just come and see us. And once you enter the SSA site, then you can access this content. So I'd like to go through one of those today, which is the zone name on section add-on. So here we can add customized zone information in the section view and add a visible zone within the 3D view of that section. Let's have a look at it in practice. So here we have the Graphisoft Singapore add-on folder. So here I have 3 options regarding the zone name on section. So now I'm just going to go and open the palette. So here you can see those options. So first I just need to select the section line. So I'm just going to select the section line, and then I'm going to use the first option, the add zone name on section. So click this. It will open up the section. And now you can see 3 lots of information regarding that section. So it will label each zone within that section. But if we want to customize this detail, we can click on the little gear icon, and we can turn on and off and change the settings for 3 lines of text. So I'm going to turn off the zone ID, and I'm going to customize the font and style of the zone name. So I'm going to change the color, and I can change the font, size, all of this information from the text settings. So I'm going to click OK, and then OK, and then I'm going to click again, and it will refresh all of those zone names in section. So now that I'm still in section, I'm going to use the third option, which is to show this in 3D. So here in 3D, it will take a section, and I can see where that section line is directly in the 3D window. So if I don't want to see this and I want to hide it, what I can do is click this option again to toggle the visibility of these in 3D. So here I'll just choose which section I want to hide and click OK, and this will hide it in the 3D window. So I'm just going to turn it back on. So I'm going to go through the same settings dialog and choose the section and OK. So this will bring it back. Now I want to see this on floor plan. So I'm just going to select one of the items here. And then if I click this button, it will show me exactly where that section line is in the floor plan. So this is just one of the many add-ons that we now have available for Archicad 24. Thank you. So if you want to know anything more about the products, please come and talk to us directly or visit our website.
And now, Catherine Look and Ian Lander will talk us through how they take advantage of our BIM technology to design and control their projects, regaining the role of the architect as the master builder.
Hello, my name is Catherine Loke and this is Ian Lander. We are from the practice Lander Loke Architects. I've been in practice in Singapore since 1993 and Ian since 1969. Our practice is a 2-person practice. We have no staff, and but we're still able to do fairly substantial projects. And part of the reason we can do that is because we use Archicad. Why do you use BIM?
Basically, because it's available, but because it's a handy tool. Same as before we didn't have BIM, it was set square, T square, drafting machine, AutoCAD drawing, and I stress drawing still, and then modeling. Archicad modeling was far superior. It's intuitive, it's easy, it's hands-on, can be used at every stage of the project, and it basically manages the documentation with very little further input.
Well, I think we have always, throughout our practice, we have always done our own drawings, even before we started using BIM. And we always believe that the architect must do our own drawings because it is from our ideas that the ideas come from us, and this is where we have to convey our ideas to other people. So we always did our own drawings. But why we use BIM is because in the past, using other tools, we had to involve a lot more other people because sometimes the work was so much that we cannot do it all on our own. But using BIM allows us to actually go back to the traditional role of the architect, being able to control everything, being able to generate all the outputs from just this one software. So to us, it's an irony that using something modern, we can actually recapture the traditional role of the architect, which is like thousands of years old. We design using BIM, so we model, and the software is actually generating the documentation for us. So now, instead of, like in the past, things happen in stages. We had the design stage, then we had documentation stage, submissions, then after that we go to construction. But now everything is happening simultaneously. Instead of going step by step, while we're designing, the documentation is also happening. So it's no longer this sort of it's not the factory line production process anymore. Now it's more integrated. What do you?
No, I agree. And the model builds up as you develop the design, and as the model builds up, the documentation is generated.
Yeah, and our model actually gets more and more detailed as we go further into the project, and when we get to the construction stage, as we get more information from the contractor as well, then we put in more and more information into the model, and then it starts looking more and more real as well.
I think the streamlining, where previously even just moving a door in plan with drawing, then you have to redraft that in elevation and in section and do it by projecting the plan to the section. Very tedious, and you might forget to do one or other, end up with discrepancy. Whereas when you move something in a model, it's moved in every view, whether you're taking further sections, elevations, or whatever.
Yeah, and we can also anticipate problems. Like when we're in the process of design, we'll see certain things, and we can then anticipate and prevent problems on site. So those were the things that we couldn't do when we were drawing in 2D in the past. So in that way, we are able to resolve a lot of things at design stage before it even gets to construction.
I think the other thing is when one sees a conflict in a drawing, it is done by a draftsman or a technician or someone else, then they may resolve it in a way that creates another clash, or a way that we don't like the design output, whereas doing it yourself, you make that decision.
Yeah, we're more able to control the design, and then the downstream, the information that gets sent to the people who are going to build it. Yeah, we'll tell you something about the WoHub Technical Hub, which we just completed. So it's a project which is about 13,500 square meters. And normally for a project of this size, we would need a team of maybe an architect, an assistant, and then maybe 3 draftsmen in the past, or something like that. But in our office, it's just the 2 of us. We don't have any draftsmen, and we basically just handle it ourselves. Generally 2 of us or 1.5 of us, because it wasn't both of us full time. And we model everything. What we tend to do now using BIM is to model everything right down to the last, all the detailing and all the
beginning,
yeah,
the footings, the piles, the pile cap, the ground beam.
Yeah, everything. And for this project, it's quite interesting because there's a combination of precast structure as well as mass engineered timber. So there are certain sort of tricky junctions between the 2 different materials, and also how the services are then run. So we model all of that to the degree that we could then generate the details, the 2D plans, elevation sections, details, without doing any 2D drafting at all. So all the details and documentation were all generated from the model itself. And in that way, we can make sure that the information given is correct, that it will be built correctly.
Master Builder, I think Virtual Builder, because all we built was a model, a virtual model, but we build it in a way that the building itself will be built. And particularly with MET, the beams, for example, are not continuous beams. They're all simply supported beams, post and beam type of structure and bracing. So these were all modelled the way they will be built and assembled. And our information was then sent to the MET specialist in
Austria.
Austria.
Yeah. So that was
So they're
important as well.
cutting schedules.
That was important because we needed to coordinate the penetrations. So we modeled all the openings and every element, and then that was given to the supplier so that they could fabricate it in Austria and then ship it to Singapore. Yeah. And even simple things, even freestanding objects or simple things like fire extinguishers, we would put into our model to make sure everything is aligned. So as the architect, it has given us back that control that everything in the building has to be in the correct place. So and correct alignment, and we are able to express this by modeling it and then conveying it to the builder. For Wahab Technical Hub, we also use BIM actually to coordinate with other consultants. So the reality is the state of the industry is that not everyone is using BIM, and even if they are using BIM, they are not necessarily using the same tool. But what we find really useful in Archicad is that it is able to export in so many different formats. So for most people, they are most comfortable with PDF. So most of our drawings are issued in PDF. But the industry is still very comfortable with using DWG, 2D drafting. So a lot of the subcontractors and consultants as well prefer us to give them DWG files, which we do. And that saves them a lot of time in having to redraw, and it also saves us a lot of time in having to check whether their base drawing is correct. And then we also have some consultants who like to use SketchUp, so we can also export in SketchUp to them. And then for those who are comfortable using BIM and want the geometry, we can export in IFC. And then we also export schedules, quantities, various measurements in Excel. And for the layman or even for the builder, we sometimes also give them the BIMx file, which they can then carry around in their mobile phones or in their iPads or tablets as a quick reference. And for the layman, it's very, very user-friendly. They can just download BIMx for free, and it helps them to understand the design. So we find that with this kind of flexibility, it's very, very important because it allows us to adapt to different consultants. We don't expect all consultants who work with us to use the same tool. That's not the reality. So what we do is keep ourselves quite flexible and remember that the most important thing is that we want to communicate our design. So whichever way is best to communicate our design, we will use it in whatever form that the other party is comfortable with. We are equally adaptable and we can just export the information in that format. So that is actually the most important thing. It's not using BIM for BIM's sake. It's using BIM as a way to enable us to communicate with our people. To get the most out of Archicad, I think there needs to be a change in practice structure. So in the olden days, practices were organized into different departments. You might have a design department, a documentation department, a compliance department. Because the documentation part was really, really very, very laborious. And most firms would need a big team of draftsmen to do all the drafting. But now, using Archicad, because the source is just that one file, from the one file we are able to generate perspectives, we're able to do the documentation, we're able to do our submission drawings. So in a way, it's made the workflow more integrated.
Teamwork.
Yeah, and so we use Teamwork for the WoHub Technical Hub project. Both of us can actually work simultaneously on the file using Teamwork. And the Teamwork platform actually means that if more than one person can work on the file simultaneously, you don't even need to be in the same room. So you can actually be collaborating with someone in another office and even someone in another country. So it has actually opened up a lot of opportunities for us to be able to collaborate, especially as a small practice where we don't necessarily want to have a lot of people in the practice, but we can then pick and choose who we want to work with, and even look at who we can work with internationally as well. We use Archicad because it's actually quite intuitive. I mean, BIM software typically has to be complex because it needs to behave intelligently. So there are quite a number of settings and things that you will inevitably have to do if you want the model to be intelligent. But Archicad is designed by architects for architects. So in a way, then is in line with the way architects think. So it then makes it something that is a tool that actually makes us better architects. So it's not just the degree of detail that we provide now is much, much more than we ever did. Because in the past, if we had to do 2D drawings and we have limited time or limited resources, then we can only do so many drawings. But by using Archicad, now we are producing more than ever. Every little thing, every little corner, even the perspectives as well, we find that a very useful tool to convey the information to the builder and to the client. We had one project where we actually produced like 300 over perspectives of every room, and anything that we needed to explain to the client, including different options. We could
generate from Archicad.
Yes, and it was generated from Archicad. We could never have done that if we were still, trying to do 2D drawings and after that separately trying to do perspectives. But using Archicad's rendering tool as well, it's become not just a tool for creating the nice portfolio pictures, but also a very, very important communication tool for us to explain to the client what the design is, and also to explain to the builder what they are building, because quite often the builder cannot imagine what they are building as well. So the rendering tool is actually quite a big bonus, and the quality of rendering is so realistic now that you can hardly tell the difference between the real thing and the rendering. Well, I think the most important thing is to know why you're using BIM. Yeah, don't just use it because somebody told you to use it or you heard that it's good, but use it because there is something that you want to achieve, and then use it in a manner that suits you best. The tool is only a tool, and it's more important that you know why you want to use it and how you're going to use it. That's more important than actually just using it for the sake of saying that you use it. Yeah.